If you're tired of making countless applications and you're frustrated with lack of results, like hey, you're applying but you're not getting interviews, and you're frustrated because you do not even know like what's going on, like is it ATS that is blocking my resume, or is it that the hiring is only happening through referrals, right? Or do I need to access some secret network, whatever the heck, right? A lot of these career coaches, they spread a lot of noise as well. In this video, I want to give you a most definitive diagnostic system, a framework through which you can pass your job search efforts, like diagnose like, hey, what is it that you could improve and take action right now? And just to give you a heads up, like, hey, this is pretty straightforward process. You do not need anything fancy like ATS resume or access to some secret job market, anything like that, which, like, of course, like these are all marketing gimmicks that a lot of career coaches would push. You do not need any of that. The very first thing to understand is, what kind of problem do you have? There's only two kinds of problems. You either have a demand problem or you have a marketing problem. Now, demand problem is where, and this demand problem often gets confused as a market problem, where people say it's a bad job market, or like there's a lot of firing going on, layoffs going on, right? It's a bad job market, or there aren't enough jobs, plentiful jobs available, or there isn't like recruiters are not reaching out to me. So they make a lot of assumptions, but in reality, bad job market, good job market, that does not matter. Right? Bad job market could happen in the marketing problem as well, and I'll explain to you, we can solve that there. In essence, the demand problem is where you have a certain skill set, but there isn't much demand for it, right? Nobody wants to hire somebody like you. And in that situation, you're pretty cooked. So this is a hard one to get out of. Like, we certainly cannot help you. We do not know if anybody can help you with that, unless you are making lateral or even a downward move to some different career trajectory, which almost always is going to be a career pivot that you would have to do. It's a hard thing to do in tech, right? It's an easy thing for other people to come into tech, but it's a very hard thing to do within tech. Not to also worry about it, because this happens in a very small segment of the audience. At most 5 to 10% people might experience a demand problem at any given time. Of course, there will be some people who would always experience that, because tech job market keeps evolving, keeps reinventing itself, right? Tech in itself, it keeps reinventing itself. So for example, if you were programmer in COBOL for mainframe systems that are used in like these archaic banks, 20 years ago, there you must have had some worth. Anymore, like if that's the only skill set you have, you are pretty cooked. So it happens because there isn't enough demand for your skill set, or it also happens, which is currently happening, is when your skill set is commoditized. This is happening currently with project managers, program managers, right? People working on consulting companies, right? The IT services, IT consulting companies like Capgemini or Infosys, Wipro, so on and so forth, right? These people are getting increasingly commoditized, and hence either being replaced by other people in the organization or being replaced by AI. Now, this also happens to people who have been with the same company for a long time, and they, for whatever reason, have like this very lofty expectation. So they say like, this is just an example, not to say anybody from GE, but just an example, like I'm working at this Fortune 500 company, I'm a director or senior director, so I must become the CIO of another company, which is a smaller or mid-sized company. Like, you know, somebody won't offer you a position just because you want it. There should be a demand. So sometimes these lofty expectations get into the way of accurately reading the market, and hence all of that. Like, if you are stuck in one of these, then it's a very hard situation to get out of. Compare that to marketing problem. This happens to most, but most people do not realize. They think they put any other reason besides like but like this happens because you cannot market yourself effectively, and this is a 100% solvable problem. right? And close to 95% people experience this kind of problem. Like, they happen to be in this problem and they blame the market. Now, this is 100% solvable, whether it's a bad job market. So even 2022 job market, 2023 job market, people who were in this bucket, we were landing them interviews, right? Really cooked markets, so many layoffs going on, but our clients were landing interviews there. It is also solvable when there's excessive amount of competition. So this is not to competition, by the way. Competition is not to be confused with commoditization. These are two different things. Competition means like, hey, there are 2,000 people who have applied to the role. We have had like people succeed in like where 6,000 people have also applied. Multiple clients for the same role have gotten an interview. So this beats competition. Granted, as long as you are a fit for the role and there are roles that exist, you are in this bracket. And if you are in this bracket, then only thing left to do is solve your marketing. If you say like, yes, Varun, I apply to the roles. I go out on LinkedIn and I look for roles and I can find roles where I'm an exact match, and yet I do not get a call for an interview. Then we need to diagnose one of these three areas, right? You need only three things, only, nothing outside of that. This is only three things to land interviews consistently. One is, for all the roles that you're applying to, you must be a fit. This is not a should, this is a must. You must be a fit. And when I say must be a fit here means not just meeting the minimum requirements, but kind of like unsaid requirements. So for example, if somebody is looking to hire a director of data engineering for a large hospital system, they will not hire somebody who is a data platform and analytics leader who is working in an ad tech company. First of all, they are like both on both sides, as well as like they would not know much about setting up data structures or whatever, how you deal with data in like a HIPAA compliant environment, right? How do you set up data for like these interoperable systems or the EHR systems, right? So you would not know that. Even if you know a little bit, or there would be such a long onboarding and kind of like training curve, learning curve for you, that it does not make sense for them to hire a senior level person who is absolutely not a fit. So you must be a fit, and you must be a precise fit for what they're looking to do. And then from there, if you are a fit, this is like, so assuming that this happens, so then a hiring manager, that's the key decision maker that you have over here, they must see that you are a fit. How do you make them see? I'll talk to you about that. And even if they do see it, then you must be one of the more qualified candidates in that location. Ideally, like if it's a hybrid role or if it's an on-site role. If it's remote, then you must be a fit, and the hiring manager must, like, these things go like double check, right? They need to be really on point because the competition is going to be too damn high. Or if it's a location thing, then you must be at least one of the more qualified candidates, right? Because they can't interview 15 candidates, they can interview 5. They can interview 10. They can't interview 50 candidates. There could be 50 candidates in their location, right? So you must be one of the more qualified ones. So how to make sure that you are a fit? You must be a fit. So this entire thing relies on finding the right job, right? And this is your niche. So based on what you do, what kind of a leader you are, even like let's just say you are an IT leader, but you're not just a technology leader. In IT, there are infrastructure, there's operations, there's applications, there's enterprise architecture, there's so many disciplines of IT, right? Different companies would need different things. So like if you have worked on infrastructure and operations for a regional chain of car dealerships, you would not be a technology leader for supply chain optimization or supply chain systems in a large retail company. That simply would not work. So you have to find your niche. We can help you with that. Like if you ever get in touch with us, that's the first thing that will help you build, or we'll ask you if you are aware. Now from there, how to make sure that the hiring manager sees that you're a fit. Now, hiring manager is a busy person. So you get in touch with them. They either see it through your resume or profile, LinkedIn profile. These are the two most commonly available marketing assets that you have at your disposal. So in that, like, when somebody scans for those things, like if I'm looking for a director of data engineering for a large hospital system, then can I find these words like EHR? Can I find these words like that you have been in that environment? Can I find that, like, hey, you have worked on exact same problem, exact same scale of data, exact same kind of like cloud transformation, whatever my requirement is, can I find a replica of that on your resume? And if I can I find that quickly, scan it? And so that's why we always like, hey, always optimize your marketing for your particular niche, because you're only gonna apply for roles in that because you must be a fit there, right? And once you optimize for that and you keep only that, it makes it much easier for the hiring manager to see on your resume that you are that person. And then you don't just leave it at that, you reiterate that. And this is where you get to do it much more precisely. So this outreach is just some sort of an email or a message that you get to the hiring manager. How you find the hiring manager is an entirely different topic. We can help you with that. But for now, let's just assume that you know the hiring manager, you know where you're reaching out to. And by the way, like 99.99% of the roles that are available online, you can find the hiring managers. There's ways to find out, right? But let's say you're reaching out to them, then what do you write to them? And this has to be super on point. So like by reading that, it should not be a laundry list of all of the things that you've done. There should be specifically, very specific, very laser sharp in terms of like how you can solve their specific problems, and you list out their specific problems, and then you say like, here's how I can solve your specific problems. The reason for that is because I have done the same things in my environment, and then you describe your environment. That's more or less the gist of like what outreach you want to make. Not all outreaches will be successful, so do not just send 3 and throw your hands in the air and then say like, hey, it does not work. It will not work because you need to be one of the more qualified candidates. So it will require you some amount of volume. It will require some amount of it will require a lot of consistency, because like you're not just sending one message and giving up. You have to be consistent, right? And it requires most of all speed, because as soon as the role is being posted, there's going to be candidates flooding in. You gotta start at the blank space. So like the moment hiring manager thought of like, hey, let's take this online and let's post this role and see how many people come in. Before the flood comes in, you gotta act fast, and you gotta make your first impression then on an empty field in the minds of the hiring manager. So but if you do these 3 things, right? So first of all, if you have a demand problem, sorry about that. I don't know, like I do not have an answer for it over here. If that is the case, I'm not the expert here. But if you have a marketing problem like most people, then you gotta look for these 3 things. And I can bet you, I can guarantee you, that's pretty much like why we guarantee those things to people. Our results are always 100%, not always, like recently we started doing that. So, but anymore, moving forward, our results are always 100% guaranteed. We only work with those who we can offer a guarantee to. And when we offer a guarantee, we look for whether you have the marketing problem that we can solve, not the market problem, not the demand problem. It's not the market problem. So you don't have the demand problem, right? And if you happen to be in this category, then we'll take care of everything. And that's how we offer the guarantee. But like, even if we are not working with you, you are not one of our paid clients, I can bet you if you go through these steps, if something is not working out, the first place I would start is like, hey, find your niche, position yourself in your niche, right? Then build your resume, LinkedIn profile around that niche. Then you make the outreaches, and then with those outreaches, you're fast in applying, you're fast in making outreaches, you make those volume of application. Volume here does not mean like spraying and praying, by the way. There could be 5 or 6 roles, and that's enough volume for you in a week. But like if you're going after those 5 or 6 roles, go after them like really the moment they show up, and then you maintain their volume, and then you're consistent. It's not like you cannot be passively looking your way into this, right? So you gotta stay consistent. But if you do that, you will fix your getting interviews problem. That's a very solvable problem, by the way. Hope that helps. All the best.